changes to the Far East, making Confucian more playable, a lot of changes to quality of life, tons of bug fixes. Yes, Paradox released a new 1.30 free patch on Wednesday, which is having 650 changes in the changelog. Of course, most of you do not have time to go through whole changelog and find the most interesting stuff. This is why you have me. In a couple of minutes, I'm gonna show you the most interesting changes that came with this patch. Starting with the Far East, in general all of those changes are supposed to make gameplay in the Far East and gameplay around China, around Confucian, more fun. For example, Celestial Empire right now can convert their tributaries into actual vassals. Chinese Kingdom Government Reform now gives -100 opinion of countries of the same culture or cultural group. It means that when Ming plots and we have multiple Chinese countries, they'll be not allying each other, but they'd rather fight against each other to unite whole China. All of those changes are pretty much around Confucian and harmonization, and they are supposed to make harmonization quicker, easier, so we get more bonuses from different religions, and those different religions are supposed also to give better bonuses. And what is even more interesting, if you harmonize a religion, you should be able to access its monuments. Playing as Manchuria might be even more interesting right now, because when you form it as the Georgian culture, Emperor will get an event where he uses 50 mandate and it's releasing you as a free nation. So if you do it in the right moment, you'll fight against Ming that has 0 mandate. It's also making playing one of the Chinese minors more fun, because when during the Ming crisis that are getting released, you're getting actual decision to switch to one of those countries. Multiple changes making a new country taking over mandate easier to play as. So for example, you're decreasing the devastation, you're getting a mandate to go for forming Celestial Empire, which makes taking the mandate more likely, especially for the players, because usually it's not really worth it, but in my opinion, it's one of the most interesting types of the gameplay, just people still hate it because they remember the old patches where it was terrible. There's a huge move to Korea with better air stats and far more development in their capital. That's what I mentioned. Forming a Celestial Empire is granting land maintenance, force limit, manpower recovery speed, and it's thirdly saying in order to help the AI to unite China, but I assume players should get it as well. So those changes are making playing in the Far East more enjoyable, and I think I should try doing a Confucian gameplay, maybe in Korea, maybe in China in the future. Second part are general changes in the patch. First of all, custom nations. There are 50 new custom ideas, so on top of 100 or even more that were there already, have even more choices, and there are also 8 new custom nation colors, which is honestly even more important. Some minor things like trading rich is no longer extended by fleet basing rights, so you can't really exploit that, but the same PUs and client states are going to increase it, so it's really nice for the trading cities gameplay. Let's go with Venice. Portugal ideas got rebalanced, so they're right now stronger, so if you could just compare, instead of trade efficiency, right now they have infantry compatibility. Instead of sanctionship morale hit received, right now they have the naval morale, which is more important. Instead of a merchant, there's trade efficiency. Instead of artillery compatibility, there's artillery fire, that is also in Spanish ideas. Same thing for the Roman Empire. Since Holy Roman Empire received its broken ideas, Roman Empire got a buff as well. Meaning that right now, for example, they received a Republican tradition bonus. The co-creation cost bonus increased to 25%, and they also have the admin efficiency bonus, which is very strong. There are some minor changes to espionage ideas and maritime ideas, but nothing really significant, honestly. Those are still fairly useless. You probably noticed that Castilian AI is usually getting Portugal on the PU in most of the cases, so this change is pretty much nerfing AI. Some rebalance to revolutionary target. Instead of broken 40% land force limit, right now they're also getting a bonus to the navy, so more of navies, as well as manpower and sailors recovery speed instead. You don't really have to go exploration ideas to spawn the colonies. That might be a very interesting change, for example, as mentioned over here, Norway. This is interesting change. Remember, in many of my videos I was cancelling the 1% loans, only to take them again. So this is no longer possible in this case. You have to repay all of the loans to get rid of the privilege, and the privilege will automatically disappear when you repay those loans. This is a nerf to multiplayer. In the most multiplayer servers this was already banned. So right now, when you turn off the force just before pissing out, those forts will automatically refill the moment you peace out. So you can't do 10 peace deals in a couple of months if you just keep changing the control of the forts and turn them off. In my opinion, this is a mistake. This is the worst change in this patch, and honestly that should be revoked. Because according to this, right now if you don't have enough money to repay the loan, you can't even change how many loans you have. It doesn't make any sense, right? Because there was a second button to repay the loan, that's fine. But the button to see the list of your loans should be always visible like it was so far. Quality of life changes. Okay, first of all, no longer half states. Remember that in 1.31 you could just half state everything that was not giving any gas capacity, and you could just have 50 autonomy for free. They changed it to 25% cost in 1.32, and they changed it to 50% cost on 1.33. So half states in some cases will be worth it, but not as much as they were. A nice move to the hegemony, because so far 100 relation hit on the hegemony just destroyed all of your relations. Minus 50 is a nice change. They are trying to make expand infrastructure more worth it. A nerf to the manpower and force limit bonus from the colony, especially the crown colony, is a very welcome one, because it was absolutely broken. Remember my Majapa hit campaign when I had 26 million force limit? Yes, that's what we could achieve with that. Yeah, if you give subsidies to your colonies right now, they will be more likely to just use it actually on the colonies instead of just doing some random stuff. Some UI changes, like for example you get a pop-up that you can improve an actual great project, new map modes, especially the one related to the religious leagues, more information in the naval quality ledger. This is something very interesting, especially if you play in India, because you can actually get a decision to change the Brahmins into Dhimis. Remember, Dhimis are one of the most important and the strongest part of being Muslim in EU4. A lot of quality of life stuff, like for example converting all of their cultures that are accepted to Roman culture when you're from Roman Empire, changes your culture when you're Korean or Tibetan to become Chinese. You can for Ethiopia without being Coptic. This is something that I really like because I plan to do Brandenburg soon. The meantime to happen for the event of Fate of Neumark got halved. Remember, you could even wait like 10 years for the event to happen. Right now it should be far quicker. Nerf to actual revolution. Remember, if you had 100 absoluties, you were having 50 autonomy in the provinces. So right now, instead of autonomy per absoluties, you are getting actual annes per absoluties, which will still hurt, because with 100 absolutism, you will get 25 annes in those provinces. When there's Netherlands declare independence, you can choose to play as the Netherlands, so that's a very nice choice. Forming room is giving autonomous missions. So far, you're just keeping your old missions. Right now, you're actually getting access to something better. This is one of the most interesting changes. The Parliament of Byzantine and the Roman Empire is now called the Senate. So you'll be able to say, I am the Senate. Revolutionary Zeal is not right now giving discipline, saying as the absolutism. There's a change in the trade company investment, which is right now giving a flat bonus to manpower. So trade companies OP meta coming. Finally, you can make vassals that are Muslim to convert the religions, because in the past they were just getting guarantee Dhimmi autonomy, they're converting shit, and you couldn't convert shit in the lands. Right now it's gonna work if you take religious ideas. You can drill armies in the subject controlled provinces, something that was very lacking so far, and this is something that I always also lacked. So if you click to repair ships on your navy, they will actually go to the province nearby that is having the best repair ship speed. There are also tons of AI changes. I'm not gonna go through all of them, but in general, AIs are supposed to build more forts, they're supposed to delete less forts, they're supposed to upgrade the forts more often, they're supposed to manage their budget far better, they're supposed to not move both the forts as often as they used to in the past, so you could just go into the war, just get 3 forts at the same time in the first month. That will be no longer possible. The AI is supposed to be more aggressive if declaring the wars, they are supposed to manage the estates better, manage the advisors better, colonizing better. So in general, Paradox is trying to make AI actually challenging, and I'm really having fingers crossed that it's gonna work. I didn't try it, but I trust that it's going to the right direction. Finally, bug fixes is like almost half of the patch, but I just picked up the most important ones. But before that, a few warfare changes, and probably one of the most interesting changes in this patch alone. Because first of all, fire and shock picks now affect morale damage as well. You might not understand what it means, but so far, morale peeps, when you're changing your unit types, were the most important usually, because they affected the morale damage as well. Fire and shock peeps did not do that. Right now, with this change, we have to rethink how we're thinking about picking the peeps for your units, because morale peeps are no longer as important as they were in the past. Right now, backrow troops are gonna take less morale damage as they used to, and this is because of the changes how the units are gonna deploy since this patch. Because first of all, artillery shouldn't deploy in the first row, of course, unless you have only artillery, and second of all, even more important, the system will try to always get artillery in the second row. Even if you started the battle with infantry in the second row, it's gonna be automatically praised by artillery once you get it, and the first row should be always infantry and cav only. So the system will be trying to force those units only in the first row, while in the second row it's gonna be usually only artillery. That's gonna be an interesting change, because I didn't see this change in the changelog, but they mentioned it in one of the patch notes that artillery right now is gonna also retreat if its morale hits 0. In the past, when it hit 0 on the second row, they were still fighting it. There was nothing different in that. So with this change, we might start thinking about reinforcing the battles with the artillery. Reinforcing the battles with the artillery. So a lot of rules that we are thinking about are gonna change with this patch. I don't know how it works, I didn't test it, I've heard it works like that already from the people that tested it, and I'm really glad to check it on the multiplayer. And about the multiplayer I'll mention in a second, because there's also something important about that. Bug fixes. Colonization is more likely to colonize everything around. This is more like a meme. Swedish stance tours Regency event as a modifier to Denmark instead of Denmark. Somebody gave an event, Swedish event, for Denmark, which is in Indonesia, instead of Denmark. Can't actually do morale damage. So you're telling me that the whole time they did not do the morale damage? Okay. Fix occasional -1 Regency Council event. I had this issue once in the multiplayer, and that was the biggest pain in the ass I ever had, so I'm glad that they fixed it. That was also something very annoying since 1.32, I think. So when you send a merchant to a node, you couldn't just change his tag from transfer trade power to collect. You had to cancel this merchant and send him again. That was super annoying, and they fixed that. And the fixes of the exploits. One exploit that I made a video on, so quarantining a nation just to revoke the quarantine and get a 5 years truce with them, it was fixed. Right now only you are getting the truce. The second nation will not get a truce with you, so they can still join the coalition. Streltsy units finally cost manpower. Remember, in the macro builder, you could just build Streltsy just for money, without using manpower on this build. So right now it's fixed, and they actually cost manpower when you do it through macro builder, because if you do it from the interaction from the government, they are still with no manpower cost. Pay that shame Paul. Some fixes to the peace deal, so guys, if they want one province and you give them one province and they want more, that's no longer happening. And this exploit that I've heard about in 1.32 beta, that if you put an air on the ship and just sunk this ship, then this air died. This is no longer working, this is kind of an exploit. And finally, one thing that I wanted to touch for people excited about the multiplayer, it's not working so far on 1.33. From what I've heard, currently when the error console dies, in many cases, your game is just getting out of sync, which is making the multiplayer very much unplayable, and I've heard that they are working on fixing this issue, but at this point both modded and vanilla MP is not really working 1.33, so fingers crossed on this being fixed. So to sum up, I think this might be one of the biggest free patches that Paradox made so far, and I'm really excited about a lot of changes, both in the Far East to try playing something in China region, about changes to the warfare, I really need to test it, quality of life changes as well, and bug fixes as well. The list of the bugs in this thread is far bigger than I chose. I just chose the most interesting ones. Phew, it took longer than expected, even though I took like 15% of the changes to talk about. I think those are the most important ones, so guys, if you enjoy this type of the content as always, remember to leave a like on this video and subscribe to the channel to get notified about the future content coming very soon. For today, thank you so much for watching and enjoy the rest of your day.